Good afternoon, guys. Currently, I only see that your Psalter river is signed in at the moment. So I'm just going to give it like 1 or 2 minutes, and then we'll see if somebody else signs in. And if in 2 minutes there's nobody, we can go ahead. Is that fine with you guys? Okay, thanks. Okay, let's get going. Um, I see there's only are there only two guys in the Psalter river CLC, or are there more people that I'm not seeing? Okay. Okay, so let's get started. There's quite a number of stuff that I have to go through. Just on an indication, did both of you guys attended the business information technology course as well, or is this the first time you're seeing me?
We were in the previous class.
Sorry, say again.
We were in the previous class.
Okay, okay. So then I'll just quickly run through the introduction as well. Um, my name is Henk Mostert, as you've seen on the introductory video. And in this module, both Turin and myself are going to be your lecturers and doing the tutorials and provide the course material to you guys. But just quickly, something about me. I have a degree in internal auditing. I started as an external auditor at Deloitte and Touche in 1999. Currently, they're only Deloitte's, but then there was still Deloitte and Touche. And then I started my first venture in 2002, and since then I've been a forensic investigator, an entrepreneur, and for the past 7 years I've basically focused on forensic investigation, which include fraud and corruption and theft and those kind of things. And yeah, now currently I'm an entrepreneur and a consultant, and I would like to share my family with you. I have a wife and 3 daughters. Let me just share that with you. And so I'm the only guy in the family, which can be fun sometimes, and sometimes not that much. But what I also would like to share with you is just my favorite Bible verse as well. It's Romans 8, verse 38 to 39. For I'm convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. I would like just to get to know you as well. Can you just quickly say who you are, the two of you?
I'm Devini, and my favorite Bible verse is Jeremiah 29, verses 11.
Thank you very much. Sorry, say again, your name is?
Devani.
Jedeline.
See you now.
Devani.
Okay, thank you. And you, sir?
Sorry?
Okay, thank you very much. Who's the gentleman?
Hi, my name is Denzel.
Oh, is it Denzel? I've met
Yes.
you. Okay. Okay, so let's get going.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Denzel. I've had a look at the responses from the first discussion question that I received when you submitted your discussion questions, and on that I would like to underline or reiterate certain concepts that I see that you guys are experiencing as difficult to understand. Now, economics is a new field. It's certainly new concepts and new ideas. So I don't believe that you are not able to understand it. I just believe that it's something new, and I would like to explain in more detail some of the concepts. So that's what today's tutorial is going to be about. It's very important for me that you do understand the basic ground concepts, the basic building blocks of economics, so that when we get to unemployment and we get to privatization and nationalization, that you know that where we're coming from, that it basically feeds down to choices and scarcity and all those kind of things. So it's important for me that you do understand the groundwork, the basics. Okay, so let's get going. Economics, you've seen this in the introductory video, but I would like to reiterate that economics is the study of the use of scarce resources to satisfy unlimited human wants. Now, the key words here is scarce, it's resources, it's unlimited human wants. Those are the key elements of the study of economics. So if we get to scarcity, I would like to share this with you. If we get to scarcity, it's very important for you to understand scarcity does not mean poverty. Scarcity, even Bill Gates, which is the richest guy in the world, is limited with scarce resources. So scarcity is not poverty. We must understand that. It's the fact that resources are limited, and it's not just for us. Even in nature, resources are limited. Even basic animals, if there's not enough food, the animals will become less by dying out. If there's too much food, the animals will multiply to consume that food. But as soon as the food becomes limited, or there's a problem with the provision of food for whatever reason, the animals become less and less. So even scarcity is even found in nature, and that's the way that God intended for the planet to work. So it's not poverty, and it's resources that's limited. Now the next thing is, because the resources are limited, we have to make choices. Now, choice is the fundamental, basic ground thing of economics. Because each and every one of us can make choices. There can be good and bad choices, we all know that. But choice is the fundamental building blocks of the study of economics. Because different people chooses different things. Now, when we get to the concept of wants, just to get back to choice is also something that God gave us. God gave us choice. If He didn't give us choice, we wouldn't be able to love Him, because love is also a choice. So choices are also fundamental to the study of economics. Now, when we get to wants, we all want stuff. We want beautiful clothes. We want good friends. We want to be happy. That's all desires. That's what we want. What we need is normally something different. All of us need food. All of us need water. We need shelter, and we need clothing. That's not necessarily a desire. That's a need. So now, where do demand come? How do demand fit with wants and needs? Demand is not like we all believe, I demand to have food or water or shelter or whatever. Demand in the economic context is where wants and needs are required. And because it is required, a firm or a company or government or whoever steps in, and they foresee in that demand. So demand is not something that, it's not a right, it's not something that you can enforce. And demands develop. We don't start off with a demand. We can have, for instance, first we had the computer, and everybody thought that the demand for paper is going to drop because now suddenly everything is electronic and we don't need paper anymore. But what happened? The demand for paper shot through the roof because now suddenly we have printers. And before computers, we had handwritten notes, and we would pass the one note around because it was too much trouble to print out or to write the same letter 5 or 6 times. With the coming of with computers, now suddenly we can print out 100 copies. So what happened with the demand for paper? There was suddenly a huge demand for paper. So now there's a need for paper and a want for paper because we want to print stuff and we want to give the information to everybody. And now suddenly there's a need. So now what happened with the need? Market responds to the need, and a firm like Mondi, they make more paper, so they cut more trees. So there's a whole process happening, and that's what demand is. Demand is it's a combination between wants and needs. And then the last thing on scarcity is Tandstafel. I'm sure you read about it. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Now that means even if I take you to McDonald's and I buy your food, it is a free lunch for you, but it's not a free lunch for me. I had to pay for it. Now, nothing that is manufactured or that comes through a process or a chain of manufacturing is for free. Somebody has to pay for it. And sometimes, I don't know if government understand that as well, but nothing is for free. Somebody had to pay for the cow that was in the field before he became a hamburger. Somebody had to pay to slaughter the cow. Somebody had to pay for the meat to go through the distribution process. Somebody had to pay for the meat to be cooked. And somebody had to pay for the final meal. And there's no such thing as a free lunch. Nothing is for free. Somebody somewhere has to pay for it. Now, not necessarily in cash, but somebody might have paid for it in time. Somebody might have paid for it in petrol or whatever goes into the manufacturing process. So it's not necessarily money that we are talking about. If we say there's no such thing as a free lunch, it can be that somebody invested time into a product, and that's also not free. Okay, just one thing, if you want me to clarify anything and I'm going too fast, please stop me and ask. I would rather you ask, and I'm sure we understand each other, than going through the process and at the end we don't know. I'm still not sure if you understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's move on to the next. The next thing is opportunity costs. Again, this is a new concept. Opportunity cost is the value, it's of value to the decision maker. So if I make a choice, there is an opportunity cost for me. It's not necessarily an opportunity cost for you. It's always for the person that makes the choice. Now, what is the opportunity cost? It's the best alternative that is not selected. Now, if I can try and explain it like this. I can buy a hamburger, or I can buy a hot dog, or I can buy a pie. The cost of the hamburger is 12 Rand, the cost of the hot dog is 10 Rand, and the cost of the pie is 8 Rand. So now I decided to buy the hot dog. The opportunity cost can either be the hamburger of 12 Rand, or it can be the pie of 8 Rand. It's not even the monetary value that is the decision. It's what is for you the next best choice. So if you really, really, really wanted the hamburger, then your opportunity cost is 12 Rand. If you really, really wanted the pie, you could have bought it, but you decided not to. Your choice. The opportunity cost is only 8 Rand. Now, the reason we talk about opportunity cost in economics is because we have to know that in every decision you make, there's always a flip side to the coin. I don't know if you've seen the movie Sliding Doors. It's an old movie where a lady missed the train by 2 seconds, and the one part of the movie goes ahead where she actually made the train, and the other part of the movie goes where she missed the train. Now, that is basically what opportunity costs are in economics. It's the choice that you did not make, and the cost for not making that choice. Now, is that always in monetary value? No, it's not. A choice can simply be you decided to be at this tutorial today instead of earning income, for instance. See, there's an economic value to that again. But if you look at one of the video clips that was on the unit 1 or 2, where they talk about marriage, where women postpone getting married in order to fulfill their work obligation. That's also an opportunity cost. That's not a monetary value. You can't put that in money. But there's a cost. There's a choice that was made to rather wait and work instead of getting married and have kids. So it's not always a monetary value. It's not always something that you can say is exactly 10 Rand or 15 Rand or 20 Rand. But it's important in an economic context because we have to understand the cost for people for not always, we have to understand the cost of the choice. Okay, I hope that's clear. That's a difficult concept. If it's not clear, tell me, or if you want me to elaborate on that, send me a mail. I will do my very best. Okay, so now let's move on to the possibility curve. I just would like to get the production possibility curve on the screen, and then we can start talking about it. Okay, the production possibility curve is also important for you guys to understand. This is, again, a very simple concept, being that we only make a choice between 2 items. It can become extremely complex, but at the level that we are working at the moment, this is fine. What we have to decide here is we have to decide between 2 things. So now, say for instance, I have 100 meters of electrical wire. I have a choice. Of that 100 meters of electrical wire, I can make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 computers, A. But with that same 100 meters of electrical wiring, I can make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 cell phones. Okay, so I only have 100 meters of electronic cable. That's all I have. And now we look at the production possibility curve. So what it says is, what possibilities do I have with this 100 meters of cable? For instance, if I only make 4 computers and a bit, I can make 4 cell phones. If I make just less than 3 computers, I can make 7 cell phones. If I make 1 computer, I can make almost 9 cell phones. And if I don't make any computers, that 100 meter of cable can make 10 cell phones. Now, what is this F? What is F here? F in the middle, it means that I'm not using the whole 100 meters of electrical wiring. So I am not producing to the full extent of which I can. So I'm actually wasting, when I'm here in F, I'm wasting cable. I'm either wasting it because I'm not using it, or I'm wasting it because I'm using 100 meters only to make 2 computers and 3 cell phones. So this is not the ideal situation. This is a situation where we are wasteful, where we have the means, we have 100 meters of cable, so we have the means to make any number of computers and cell phones on this line. But we are wasteful, and therefore we only make that. Now, if we look at G, G says it's an impossibility. We only have 100 meters of cable, of wiring. And with 100 meters, it's impossible to make 11 cell phones and 4 computers. It's just not possible. So this is out of the production possibility curve. This is where we work. This A, B, C, D, E is where we are at 100% production. F is where we are wasteful. And G is currently not an option. We won't be able to do that. And the next slide, we're going to see how we can get to G, but at the moment we can't. So now, how do we decide which one of these we do? How do we decide if we only make computers or if we only make cell phones? That is where demand comes into the picture. If there's a demand for only computers, say we have 5 customers and they all knock on our doors and they say, I want a computer, please. Why would we then make any cell phones? Same thing in the opposite way. If we've got 10 customers and he's knocking on our door, they're knocking on the door and they say, listen, we want cell phones. What's the use of making any computers? Even 1. Then we make 10 cell phones. But as with all good things in life, there's no such a clear answer. Some people want computers and some people want cell phones. So now, even I can have 4 customers that want computers and 3 customers that want cell phones. But I also can have this demand. I can have the demand for 4 computers and 11 cell phones. So what do I do in this instance? I have a demand. There's people knocking on my door, 4 people standing in my shop and says, we want computers, and 11 people standing in the shop saying, we want cell phones. So what do we do next? And this is where the next slide come in. Okay, are you still with me? I'm not going too fast or too slow? Okay. So now we sit in this situation, and please bear in mind that this is now the computers. This is it's called capital goods at the moment, but we'll get to that. But this is now the computers, and this is the cell phones, and this is the five computers, and this is the 10 cell phones. So how do we foresee the need of 5 cell phones and 5 computers and 11 cell phones? We have to expand our production. And how do we expand our production? by either discovery of more resources. We can go to the shop and now suddenly they say, listen guys, we've had a technological breakthrough. We can now produce 150 meters of wiring. Problem solved. I can now make my 5 computers and my 11 cell phones. So it can either be more resources, it can be better resources where we've taken the wire and we've stripped it down and now we can stretch it. So now the wire is actually, it was 100 meters, but now because it's stretchable, you know, I'm just making it up as I go along, but because it's stretchable, we can now have 150 meters. Or we have people that's better educated. The guy that initially could only install 100 meters of cable wire can now suddenly, because of his education, he can now stretch that into 150 meters. The other thing is growth, where there's economic growth. And with economic growth, you have more resources, and with the more resources, we're getting back to the more resources side. Or greater population. Now suddenly there's a bigger demand. Suddenly there is more people that want cell phones because there's more people in the country, or there's a greater population. So now what happens is that 100 meters of cabling, instead of using the 100 meters of cabling to do the light fittings, we rather use it to make cell phones, because there's a growth in the cell phone market and not necessarily in the wiring of houses market. Or better technology, we have discussed the technology, or the capital investment. So that's the way that the economy grows. That's where people, where there's the need comes first, and then after the need comes, we must have the necessary resources, and after the resources, or the population growth or whatever, that's how we grow. So hopefully you understand the production possibility curve. Okay, now let's go ahead to the consumer versus capital goods. The consumer goods versus capital goods is also something that you need to understand. You and I, we are consumers. We are at the end of the line. Once consuming, obviously you know what consuming means. Once you've eaten the hamburger, it's consumed, it's gone. There's nothing left. So we are the consumer that's consuming the product that's been made. Hamburger is a good idea. It could be a bar of soap. How do we consume the soap? We wash it, it becomes less and less and less, and suddenly there's nothing. Consume our hair products, we consume our facial products, we consume water, we consume, we can even have wood as a consumption product because we cut it up into pieces, and now suddenly we're sitting with a lot of little pieces, and we can't do anything with what's left. So we've consumed the product. Whereas services, there's no shelf life on services. A service is something you want now, and a service is delivered, and you pay for those services. So that is consumer goods and consumer services. Now, capital goods, and now that's where capital comes in. Capital is the important part here. Capital goods is something that's not lost after it's been used. For instance, your motor vehicle. Yes, over a long period of time, over 10 or 15 or 20 or 35 years, depending on what you drive, your vehicle will be consumed, but it's a capital good. It's not used up in the first time you drive with it. You drive with it 100 times, 1,000 times, you drive with it 100, 200, 300,000 kilometers. Now the same exists within a company or a firm that is manufacturing goods. All the machinery that manufacture the goods, we call capital goods. That's also where large amounts of money goes into. The machine that builds the motor vehicle is much, much, much more expensive than the vehicle itself. So the machine is much more expensive than the vehicle. The machine that builds the vehicle also has a shelf life. So that machine will build, say for instance, 500,000 cars. And once it's built 5,000 cars or 500,000 cars, it's not usable anymore. But it's still the capital concept, where it's not something that's consumed and it's immediately gone. We can use it over and over and over again, and we can use it to manufacture other things or receive income. And that's the major difference between consumer goods and services and capital goods. You don't get such a thing as capital services, because a service is received and it's gone. It's like a telephone call. You make a telephone call, you pay for the service. That telephone call does not exist in 2 or 3 or 4 days. It doesn't even exist in 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. Now, you could have made a recording of it, and we can go into detail, but that's not the point. The point is you've made use of the telephone service, you've had your conversation, it's all said and done. So it's not capital in nature, it's consumer, and it's gone. Okay, so let's move on to the factors of production. I would like to share this with you guys again. Are you still with me? I'm not going too quickly or too slowly? Okay, thanks, Denzel. Okay, so factors of production. What do we need to produce new items? Let's stick to building of computers, where I'm talking about the wires, or the 100 meters of wire. What is the natural resource in the wire? It's a copper wire. So the natural resource in the wire is the copper. The copper had to be mined, so it comes from under the ground, but it's a natural resource. South Africa is a company that's got a lot of natural resources. In effect, Africa has got extensive natural resources. If you look to a country like England, they don't have extensive resources, natural resources. They have a major influence on the world market, but they don't really have any natural resources, or the resources that they have are very limited. Whereas Africa and South Africa has got large natural resources. Sorry, now the first thing is the natural resource. Sorry about that. But the resource is in the ground. So how do we get it out of the ground? There's labor involved. And even once the copper is extracted from the ground, it still has to become a wire. So it still has to be molded. It still has to receive a sleeve, a plastic sleeve. So we need labor in order to manufacture the end product, which is the wire. All of this are underwritten by capital. If we don't have capital to buy the labor and the machines to manufacture the cable, in the end, there won't be a cable. So we also need capital. It's an extremely important factor of production. Then we have entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a term that's sometimes used very loosely, but in essence, entrepreneurship is the person that is bold enough to go and raise the capital and take the risk of manufacturing, and then employ the labor and buy the natural resources. So without entrepreneurship, there won't be any production. If nobody is bold enough to stand up and say, I will take the risk of manufacturing and I have a vision of manufacturing a copper wire, then nothing will happen. There won't be any production. And the entrepreneur will then try to raise the capital or raise the capital, employ the labor, and buy the natural resources. And in the end, we have the copper wire. And then lastly, a factor of production is technology. And technology is becoming a far greater influence in production than, say, 100 years ago. 100 years ago, a computer was not even envisioned yet, or on the scale that we're using it today. But technology is also a factor of production. The better the technology, the cheaper is the manufacturing processes, and so forth and so forth. So that's the factors of production. Okay, so now let's move on to the major flows in economy. Again, it's production, income, and spending. Now, if you have a look at the picture in front of you, you will see that the blue lines goes clockwise and the red lines go anti-clockwise. So who is the major players in the flows in economy? It's the households. The households and the firms. We are going to talk about government, but we'll get to government. So let's start with the households and the firms. Those are the two major players. Government is somewhere here in between. Okay, so what is the role of households? Households provide the factors of economy that we've just discussed. They provide the natural resources, say for instance, these are farm owner or a land owner. They provide the labor wherever they work. They provide the labor. They provide the capital. In some instances, it will be via a financial institution, and we'll get to that as well. But they provide the capital, and they provide the entrepreneurship. A firm, in of itself, cannot decide to manufacture stuff. Somebody in a household is providing the entrepreneurial factor to the firm in order for the firm to operate. Now, what happens with the firm? Why is the reason the firm exists? The firm purely exists to provide goods to the households again. If there's no demand for, let's use cell phones. If there's no demand for cell phones by the households, if nobody wants a cell phone, there's no need for the firm to manufacture a cell phone because nobody's going to buy it. Now, when we provide the factors of production to the firms pay the households again. So the income from the household is derived from the firm. So for the factors of production, the households are receiving income. That's the only reason why people work. Well, not the only reason, let me rephrase. The major reason why many people work is to receive an income. The reason why many people become entrepreneurs is to receive an income. Why do you sell your natural products that you manufactured on the farm? You want an income. So you provide the factor and you receive an income. On this side, why is the firm providing goods to the household? Because the household is buying it from the firm. So they're spending the income. They're spending the income in the firm makes a profit, the profit goes back via income to the household has more money to spend, spending more money increases the demand for goods, so now the household decide, listen, there's a new demand for cell phones, so what are we going to do? We're going to invest more money, we're going to have another startup. Once we have a startup, we're going to have more goods. If we have more goods, the household can buy the goods. You see where I'm going. It's a cycle. Now, the first great mind to sum this up was Henry Graham Ford. He was the guy that invented the Ford motor vehicle. Well, not invented the Ford motor vehicle. He started the Ford Motor Company. He came to the realization that if he does not pay his people enough money to buy his vehicles, there's no market for his vehicles. So he was the first guy that had the philosophy that everybody that's working for me must be able to buy a motor car. So what did he do? He paid them much better than any of the other firms at that stage in the economy. And what happened? Because they were paid better, they had more money to spend. What did they do? They bought vehicles. So he basically made his own market, and he was richly rewarded for being the forerunner on getting this concept. So I hope you understand the major flows in economy. Are you happy with that? Okay, thank you. Next one. So, who's the participants in the economy? Now it's very easy, those four: household, firms, government, and foreign sector. So let's have a look at households. Without the household, we will not have any economic activity. If the households are not there, there won't be any economic activity. As you've seen in the previous slide, the households, they provide all the factors of production. So now firms provide the items that is created by the demand. So the household then buy the items. That's the circular. Now government, where does government fit into the picture? Why do we have government? Because of, or why is government a factor in the economy? Let's start to have a look at that. The reason government is such a huge influence is because there's regulations required. There must be somebody that provides regulatory services as well as other services that is not provided by the economy, like for instance infrastructure. The government spends millions and billions of rands on providing the road infrastructure. They spend much money on providing security in the police force. They spend a lot of money for social hospitals, clinics, and so forth. These are all sectors that is needed by the households, but not necessarily. The demand is there, but it's not necessarily an economically viable demand. For instance, it costs too much. Nobody in my town, for instance, won't pay for a highway to run past the town. But there's a need for a highway to run past my town. I'm not going to pay for it. My neighbor is not going to pay for it. So who's going to pay for it? The government. The government decides, listen, there's a demand for a road around this town, so we will get the infrastructure there so that the people from the harbor can take the goods to the people in the inland in the country. So government has also a role to fill in the economy by providing infrastructure, by providing an oversight role, and so forth. And then, of course, there's a foreign sector. I see we're almost out of time, so if you guys don't mind, I would like to just go 5 minutes over because there's some really important things that we still need to discuss. So it's going to be 5 minutes longer than usual. Foreign sector. You've probably heard the term "no man is an island." It means nobody can survive on his own, and currently we live in a global village. South Africa don't have all the natural resources it requires to grow the economy. For instance, we have very limited oil. But because the way the world works, we need oil. So where do we get oil? We get it from another country. We have gold, and we have platinum, and we have other stuff, and we sell that to the foreign sector because let's have a look at England. England doesn't have the crop fields to sustain, say for instance, wheat farming. They don't have the environment to sustain wheat farming. So where do they get their wheat and their mealies? And that they buy that from other countries. So we need oil, and we purchase our oil from outside countries, but we also manufacture gold, or we manufacture natural products, and we sell that to other countries. So that's why the foreign sector is also a very big participant in the economy, and you have to know just how big the role is if you look at the petrol price. One of South Africa's biggest factors in the GDP, gross domestic product, that we are going to talk about in the next tutorial, has got and inflation and the consumer price index and those kind of things, is because we have no control over the petrol price. We have no control over the oil price, but it's got a huge impact on our economy because we need it. So that's why the foreign sector is also a participant, and it's a very, very important participant. And it's one that cannot be denied. Okay, just quickly, the role of government as well. Government provides a lot of work opportunities as well. And in South Africa, we also have welfare, where we have lots of people on welfare. Now, that is government spending. That's government collecting taxes from the firms and the households. They are collecting taxes, and then they are spending those taxes. How are they spending the taxes? They are also employing people. They are building roads. They're providing employment when building roads. And then they are providing grants for social upliftment. Take away any one of those sectors, and there will be a huge influence on the economy. Let's leave it at that. We'll come back to later in the whole study of economics. We are going to have a look at government on its own, because we would like you to rate the government and see how they are doing with the resources that they have. Lastly, I'm quickly going to talk about financial institutions. Now, a financial institution is a bank, is a Old Mutual, Sanlam. They are investment houses. They provide financial services. They don't provide products, because a bank, I mean, you don't go to a bank and you buy something. You go to a bank, you give them your money, they put it in an account, they charge you for it. It's a service, it's not a good. Now, the financial market is, and that's why South Africa's got an excellent financial market. The best financial market in Africa is situated in South Africa. So why do we need a financial market? We need financial markets to link up entrepreneurs that requires capital to invest with households that saved their money, and they place it in the bank, and the bank then provide the capital to the entrepreneur. If there's no savings in a country, if a country doesn't save its money, or there's no excess money in the banks, there's no capital growth, because there's no money going to people with entrepreneurial skills that can increase production. And with the increase of production, we have increase in job opportunities. We have growth in the market. So the financial institution is basically the middleman. The middleman to regulate and make sure that the money that is in the monetary system, the money that's in a country, in countries all over the world, gets utilized. It's no need for you to save all your money and put it in a blanket under your mattress and it's just lying there. It's no good for nobody. And with inflation, money that you had today that was worth 100 Rand, or that you could buy 10 hamburgers for 100 Rand each, now in 2 years' time, those 10 hamburgers is now 12 Rand each, and now you can only buy 8. And if you've done nothing with your money, it's been under your mattress, you've lost out on 2 or 3 hamburgers because you've done nothing with it. So that's the role of the financial institution. Okay, we're coming to the end. Just quickly want to share this with you, because I would like you to have a look at the next unit. By Monday morning, I will have the next unit up on Funda. And I please want you to read chapter 4 and 5. Now, I've read the chapters as well. I don't want you to get bogged down in chapter 4 on the elaborate explanation of the calculation of GDP. I want you to understand the concept. I want you to be able to say, listen, a country's GDP is this, and because it's this, I can compare it to another country's GDP. I don't need you to understand everything in depth and detail, and how it's calculated, and what forms part of GDP, and what's capital. Don't worry about that. Just make sure that you understand the concepts, but I'll make that clear in the tutorial as well. And then another thing I would like to discuss with you, I know we're only a few people, so I'll send an email again, is I would like to know if any of you guys would have an objection for me to move this Friday morning class to a Tuesday afternoon. But I'm going to send out an email, and then I can get your guys' input, and we can make a decision on that. Okay, now I've talked a lot, but can I get some feedback from you guys? Are you happy? Did I explain some of the stuff better? Is there anything else you want more?
So everything is fine on this side.
Okay. Okay. Then thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.